What do CEOs need to know about sales these days? A lot. Outdated sales strategies and tactics plague most companies today. Listen to what innovative CEOs and experts have to say about how to change all that with Sales Talk for CEOs. Welcome to Sales Talk for CEOs. Today, I have a guest who's going to talk with me about value. Now, in today's marketplace, we all know how much harder it is to find our buyers, reach them, get them interested, and guide them through the sale. But one of the things that will impact you and your customer the most is value. When there's value, people want to talk to you. When there's value, people want to move forward. When there's value, you have the momentum you need to keep a sale going and close it. And even better, to continue after that deal is closed, to onboard smoothly and to get those customers to be your very loyal customers. So value is really important. And I don't think we talk about it enough. So I'm excited to introduce Ian Campbell of, of Nucleus Research. He's also the author of The Value Sale. Welcome to the show, Ian.
Alice, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, we're going to jump right in and talk about value because it's so important. So I know you've been in this game a long time, like I have. But what is it that really got you thinking about value and made you write the book and just really start talking to CEOs and others about how important value is today?
Sure. Well, at Nucleus, we really focus on value every day. We talk to technology vendors and customers about how they deliver value and how those customers have achieved value from different technologies that they've implemented. And really across the board, we see that when value drives a deal, when value drives a decision, people shorten the sales cycle. They're happier about it. They make better references. They tell more friends about it. It turns out that value becomes the driver. And if you think about the sales funnel, everyone's trying to push somebody through the sales funnel. But if I just told you at the end you receive value, what we see is people will drive themselves through the sales funnel. So value became really the driver, more so as it becomes difficult. You don't have that much money as budgets become tighter. Value becomes an even more important part of each deal. So I wrote the book as a way to take what we learned in Nucleus and bring that in a structured way to companies as they build a sales team that's value focused and really build that value message.
And really, when we say value focused, it means we're focused on the customer because that's what they want. They want value from us. And it's so interesting when you said, to move things through the funnel, that's great. But it's beyond that value really comes in because they know what they've bought. You help them become successful with it. That adds even more value. And now you have word of mouth that is absolutely priceless.
Yeah, yeah. If you show value during the sale, if you help a customer understand value after, you really get three things out of it. You've got a customer that feels good about the decision. Look, every time somebody makes a decision, they stick their neck out a little bit.
Yeah.
And when they do that, they've got to justify why they did something for the organization. The best way to make your prospect, eventual customer, a hero is to let them arm them with the information that they can show internally. Look at what I did for the organization. So, that's sort of the first, make them a hero. The second, of course, is help them with the renewal. I mean, where a lot of folks are selling subscription services. So, the reality is you're not selling that once. It may seem like annual recurring revenue, but it really isn't. It's annual recurring resale, because every time you're reselling, you have to prove what you're doing. And sure, it can be a little bit difficult for someone to switch, but not that difficult. We've seen it now as people have a subscription service and then a few years later they say, well, maybe I'm not going to renew. I'm going to go somewhere else. So if you want to renew that subscription, having that customer understand the value, don't just sell once, but continue that value message every time you talk to them. How are you getting value? What are you doing? How is it generating benefit for your organization? And kind of finally, what better reference? One of the things we see with salespeople is they say, we've got great references. My customer loves me. Well, that's good that they love you, but I'd rather they say, hey, this company helped me cut my cost in half. That's a much stronger reference than they're really nice. They got me tickets to a baseball game. That's a good reference. A great reference is they cut my costs, they increased the productivity. These are the outcomes of what they did. So you want a great reference. Help them understand the value points, and those value points are what's going to come across as a reference. So, value. You're right. Up to the sale, it helps you close the deal, but after the sale, it makes for a sticky, happy customer that then propagates, makes more customers from that. So yeah, value is key really after the sale, more so than before.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think that that value, when they can be specific about it, is so important. But they won't be able to be specific about it unless you help them, right? So you talk about the value in very specific ways throughout the process. Now, you and I have talked about this before. There are only a few unique things, right, that
Right,
will bring value to anyone who's making a purchase. And I know that sometimes these are often overlooked. We talk a lot about ROI, right? But
right.
what are really the key things that people are looking for? It's sort of like that faster, better, easier, right? That is going to really cinch it for them. And we have to show them the value in those areas.
Yeah, so when you think about what you can do for a customer, you can really boil it down to only three things. I can only actually do three things for my customer. I can either help them increase productivity, I can reduce their cost, or as a byproduct of those two, I can increase their profits or revenue.
Right.
Ultimately, that's it. I mean, I know I do a lot of things, but ultimately it all falls down to those three things. So if you think about the features of your product and then start putting them into buckets, those are the things you do. So when you're talking to that really good customer you have, just sort of open it up and say, hey, so how did we help you increase productivity? How did we help you reduce cost? Just those broad frameworks, those broad statements, help them to understand, right? Yes, this new CRM system really increased our productivity. Let me talk about how that is. Now you can dive down and say, okay, are your sales reps more productive? Or is your customer service people more productive? Sort of come up with some better numbers. How much do you think they're more productive? So there's only three things you can do, and we like to look at those kind of benefits and say, a lot of people say there's hard and soft benefits, and I don't like that. We like to say there's direct and indirect benefits. So there are benefits you achieve directly and benefits achieve indirectly. But think about benefits being really good benefits, like I cut a cost, a benefit I believe, to maybe weaker benefits, like I have happier employees and that somehow reduces my turnover. So you can see how cutting a cost is a strong benefit, happy employees is a good benefit, but maybe not as strong from a financial point of view. So big picture, what are the kind of benefits? And then think about what's a really good one for them to say as a reference, or a good one for them to say as they're trying to decide to buy your product, cutting a cost, versus one that may not be as strong, like happier employees. Sort of think about the style of the benefit and what's great for you in closing a deal or for using a reference, what's maybe not so strong for you.
Yeah, and I think this helps us craft our questions during the sales process as well. It also helps inform marketing of some things that, they can produce that will engage people, right? So if we know what our product does and what results it gets, and we know what our customers are looking for, it gives us language, right? And that's a really
Right.
important thing because on the internet, we just look and sound like everybody else. And so we need that value language to come through. And even in questions when we're talking to the customer, is it more important for you to increase productivity or reduce costs? Right? Simple questions like that can help you understand better what exactly it is they're trying to achieve. And if they want a real hard, measurable result, or if they're looking for something, like you said, something softer, like, well, we really want our employees to be happier. That's fine. How are we going to measure that? Right? That value is so
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, one of the things would be, look at your marketing message. So we see a lot of companies when they come out with, say, a new release of a product, and here are all the features it has, and then it sort of stops. And just a little bit of a spin to say, in this new release, we really focused on increasing productivity. And here are the 5 features we've added to help you increase productivity. Just change the way you're saying it a little bit.
Yeah, give them
Package
the
up
value
features.
first, right? Just present the
That's
value
it.
first.
Tell me what's in it for me first, and then tell me how you're doing it. In
Yep.
fact, in a way, I don't care. As a SaaS product, I actually don't care what's behind the scenes. I just care that you're delivering value to me. So, a lot of times, if you just lead with value, because that's really the point. Think about your champion that's that's on the elevator and trying to make that elevator pitch to the CFO saying we want to buy something. You want to arm that challenge, that champion with the one thing. And the one thing that CFO wants to hear is we're going to cut costs, or we're going to increase productivity, or this is
Or
how it's
increase
going to increase value,
profit, or right? I
increase
mean,
profit. That's it. And does the CFO really care about the how? Probably not
no.
as much as the what. And so lead with the what's in it for them. And it seems so simple because we've talked about it for so long. But over and over again, I see salespeople in particular, if they're not sure, they fall back to, well, here's what it does. Okay, how does that help me? And just drawing that link between what it does and how it helps me is so important.
Yeah, start with the how it helps me and then how it does it, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so
absolutely.
Ian, we have a lot of CEOs out there thinking, are my salespeople doing value selling? I'm going to say probably not. And why? Because many sellers were trained to sell features and benefits, right?
Right.
And many sellers were trained to move people through a sales process versus guide them on a buyer journey. So we have all of this, kind of old methodology that these salespeople come to us with, and they, of course, use it. And at the time that we taught it to them, it fit. It fit, right?
Right.
Unfortunately, some of us are still teaching that, but we'll get beyond that right now. And but we have to bring this into their vision, right? They have to first know, hey, we're going to talk about value. This is what value is. This is what our values are. This is what it looks like. This is why it's so much better for the customer. That is
Mhm.
better for you because now you will more easily engage with your customer and lead them through their journey and beyond,
Right.
closing to having this great word of mouth references. So if I'm a CEO today and I'm sitting there saying, what's going on at my company? Are we reaching out to our potential buyers with value? What do I need to know?
Well, I mean, I agree completely. We work with a lot of tech companies, and that's our primary customer. And as much as they will tell you that they use value selling, that's a big part of what they do. The reality is they don't. Most of them don't use value selling. They do it in a superficial way. Here's an easy test for every CEO. Think about your last sales training meeting, right? You spent all that money to get all those salespeople together at some hotel. You spent money on the reception. You gave them awards. You told them how great they were, and then they sat through 2 days of product marketing people talking about the product. But you know what? Every product marketing person probably talked about the features. They didn't start with here's how my product or my what I'm doing. Here's how this component helps the customer increase productivity, reduce cost. What does it do? And here are some customers that have achieved it. So the first 5 minutes of any presentation should be here's how we do it, and here are examples of how people have achieved benefits from it. Then here are the new features. Here's the training. Because if you always start with the features, that's what the salesperson falls back to. So that's
Well,
sort
and
of
it's
number
easy
one.
and the features are kind of fun and all of that, but it's just not what brings the value, right? And I totally agree with you. When we're in the training, it's like, first of all, here's a day in the life of the person you're going to be selling this to, and here's why
Right.
these things matter to that person, right? And here's because they care about these things, they're looking for these kinds of results. Here's how we give them those results,
Right.
right? Yeah.
Well, also, you're selling through. So, in the old days, meaning 2 years ago, possibly, the person I'm talking to could probably be the decision maker, but that person isn't the decision maker anymore. I'm selling through somebody to someone behind that person. So, the person you're talking to may really love the features. They know what the features are, they know what the product does, they've got a better feeling for that. But that person has to turn around and make the business case for why are we doing something. And that's crystallizing it down to benefits. So, if you lead with benefits, you put that in their mind. They know what they're getting and they know how to turn around and say, we're going to increase the productivity of our salespeople or reduce our cost of our call center. So if you lead with that, then they can make the case internally. And the other thing is, remember, you're sort of selling twice. I'm selling through somebody, but I have to sell why my product and then why the decision to buy my product over the other decisions the company could do. Sure, if they have unlimited money, fine, but nobody has unlimited money. So the CFO is looking at 10 projects and only enough money for five. Be one of those five. And the way you become one of those five is to crystallize your message down to what's in it for the CFO, what's in it for the
Well, and
organization.
Ian, further than that, today, as you know, in the complex sale, I'm usually going to have to talk to 3, 5, 8 people, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
each of them have a perceived value that's different
Yeah.
because if I'm the user, the value to me is different than the value to the CFO. If the CFO and the CEO are thinking about reducing cost, increasing profit, that's great. No salesperson is actually thinking about those things, right? If they're going to be the
Right.
one using the tool, or if operations or manufacturing is going to be using the tool, they're thinking about how does this make my life easier, make me more
Right.
productive, right? And so
Right.
as a seller today, we have to understand the value as it relates to each and every one of those buying influences we're going to have to talk to.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, often the person coming to you is pain motivated. They have a pain in some way that they're trying to fix, and that's great because we've always said find the pain point. But it's find the pain point and find the value point, and everybody's going to be a little bit different depending on where they are and what their motivations are. You're absolutely correct. Understanding that and being able to switch between one style and another, always keeping in mind that at the end you still have to get to that short list of these are the projects we've approved, not just we decided on you, but we didn't have enough money. That's not where you want to be. So if your deal stalled, one of the things I train sales people on, I say, look, if I told you that you could make money raising baby alligators in your bathtub, would you do it? And usually I get the same sort of, no, that's silly. Then a wait a minute, then how much money? And I say, well, 5 million a year. And there's a number above which you are raising baby alligators in your bathtub. And the point of that is that I didn't tell you anything about the features of the product. I only told you how much money you were going to make. So making sure that you sort of got that value message, but also got the pain point. I want an alligator, for instance. Okay, so people understand and they want them as pets. That's great. The person who's buying or making the ultimate decision, that's more value driven. So being able to blend between the features function where somebody may have a pain point and the value decision, that's really the art form now of sales.
Yeah. So if I'm the CEO, I'm going to take a look at the most recent trainings we've done and ask myself, hey, did we teach about value here? Now, we
Right.
probably didn't. So we're going to have some training around value. And that training around value has to include understanding the results, right? That the products give. And yes, of course, it's nice to know which features support those. No problem there. But then we also have to have that training and understanding of these are the buying influences who are typically involved in the deal before it gets closed. What's the value to each and every one of them? And how
Right.
do we ask the questions to find out what they value most?
Yeah. Yeah, and in getting that information from them, I heard somebody just say, just ask, why do you want to do this? And sometimes people don't know. They won't have a good answer to that. Often, what you could say is, 2 years from now, if you go with us, if you choose our product, where would you like to be? What's your vision for what you wanted to accomplish? So if they don't know sort of the why in a bullet point, they often know the path and the story that they want to get to. So
Yeah.
just sort of picking which way you ask that question can get so much information out of where they want to be. Now they may
I
say,
like
I
to
don't
ask
know.
them, Ian, if what will be better or easier once you've made this purchase. What are you hoping will be better or easier? They can usually tell you that, oh, well, I want it to, I want it to be easier to do this, or it will be better because we can, right? So I think
Right.
those are important. So as the CEO, if I've got that part done, right? I've got the training and everybody understands what the value is, the different value for each buying influence. What's the next thing that I might want to look at as a CEO?
So certainly, when you look at the sales team, make sure they feel comfortable with the metrics. Look, you're going to talk about ROI, you're going to talk about payback, you may talk about IRR, NPV, TCO.
Oh my
Those
gosh,
aren't scary
alphabet
metrics.
soup here, right?
It really is. Although the only one you really need to know, I like to say that this is probably the most stable area in the world because ROI has been around since the beginning of time. Early caveman went out, looked outside, and said
Knew
it's
the
snowing
return on
out.
investment.
Yeah, that was written on cave walls. That calculation has not changed since the beginning of time. There's nothing new. That's the one not trendy thing out there. And same thing with payback period. Is it worth it to do something? That was the beginning of time. That was early sailing ships were deciding if they wanted to come to the Americas based on payback period. So, those are metrics that have been around forever and they seem scary, but they're certainly not. And if you break it down to if you've ever stepped in a bank, you already know what ROI is. give them money, they give you back some money. That's the way it is. So it's not difficult. And there's so many salespeople out there that are sort of afraid of these metrics. I'm not sure if I don't mention it, and we see this all the time. If we just don't mention it, maybe they won't ask. So they'll dance around the value question, they'll dance around the business case. The problem with that is then you introduce value at the end of the deal instead of the beginning. But what we know is that if you start the conversation early, and what we say is there's sort of three stages. When you first touch a customer, you start talking about all the different ways you deliver value. This is easy. Here's all the different things we do. When you get to that middle stage of the funnel, if you will, that's where you say, hey, we've got another pharmaceutical company just like you, and here's how they achieve value. We have another manufacturing company, and here's that. So you look for other people
Yeah, those
parallel to
human
them.
stories, Ian, make
Oh,
so much difference,
gold,
right? We need those stories of so
absolute
that
gold.
how did others receive value? Others like you receive this tremendous value.
Absolutely. Every case study you do should have some sort of data point in it that says, here's how they receive value. Then at the end, they want to know what the value is. But often we see salespeople say, well, let's not talk about it. And they get to the end of the deal, then and the customer says, or the prospect says, oh, well, we need a business case. Well, now what do? You call it an expert. If you have a
Oh, and
value
you're
engineering team,
lengthening your sales cycle, and this just makes me crazy because people tell me how long their sales cycles are, Ian, but they're the ones lengthening their own sales cycle because they don't put the right things up front.
that's right. I mean, let's go back to the alligator example. If I told you you could make $5 million raising baby alligators, how many people would be calling right now to buy baby alligators from me? I mean, the sales cycle would go to almost nothing because I've gone to the value point first, but I started with value. So if you start the discussion early and think about those three stages, big picture, others like them, and then them, then look at your marketing materials and say, am I answering those questions at each of those stages before I go to the next one? If you are, they already know the different ways you deliver value. By the time it gets to how they will achieve value, they've already felt it. They already know what those 2 or 3 points are going to be. So it's not a big lift to get them to figure out the business case. But if you don't talk about it to the end and then say, oh, well, I've got this outside consultant in our value team that's going to help build a business case for the next 3 months. Well, now what have you done?
You
You've
just
destroyed
stalled
your
your deal.
deal. Yeah, you just killed your deal. And why would you ever do that? You brought in somebody else, you brought in a new concept, they're off doing some big project. You made a mess out of things. So all you have to do is mention it early and just follow that flow. It's going to be a lot easier for you to get to the end.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So
for the
if I'm a
CFO,
CEO, then I need to make sure that my salespeople, my sales teams, everyone who's talking to the customer, they're comfortable talking ROI. Maybe
yeah,
even you have an ROI calculator. A lot of companies are using ROI calculators today. And along with that, that data, right? Those facts about ROI, we need the value stories that go with the ROI.
right.
So if you're a CEO and you don't have an ROI calculator or value stories. You have no training for your salespeople. Your salespeople aren't using those two tools. Take a look at that. So they need the training, right, on what to say and how to say it and who it matters to. And then they need these tools, which are an ROI calculator could be as simple as a spreadsheet, but there's tools out there you can purchase. And these stories, which you collect about the tremendous value other customers like them have received.
Yeah, I mean, so there's an ROI tool, and you can go to. We have a tool on our website. If you go to just roitool.com, you can download our free spreadsheet and probably get a lot out of that. And just use that if you want. But what we suggest is on your own website, think about a benefit tool. Just go through the benefits. Usually, if you do benefits and costs, here's the problem with an ROI tool on your website. We don't recommend it. Um, it's either too low, which case you're not going to get anything, or it's too high and you've set expectation wrongs. But the chance that you got the tool dead on right is probably zero. It's not going to happen. So you're better off saying, let's walk you through some of the benefits of our products so you can get an idea of how much you could get. Then reach out to us and we'll talk about the cost and what the true ROI would be. So use a benefit tool as a way to bring the customer in and to start to feel those benefits and then start to talk about cost. So we like ROI tools. We have one. And again, there's one available if you want, but really it's that benefit tool on the website. And there are tons of examples out there now of folks that have done a great job with sliders and things. And, certainly we've worked with a bunch of companies, but benefit tools, absolute killer. Now that can be the foundation of your value page on your website. Now you've got a place for all those snippets and those case studies to talk
Oh,
about that
I'm going to
value
pause you because you
message.
said value page on your website. I'm wondering how many companies out there actually have a value page, Ian.
Oh, it's more and more these days. Certainly, we're doing a lot of work with our clients in the tech space. It's sort of building a value message or a value page or building it into the pages around each of their products. Very important to be able to articulate that in a way that's crisp. Here are the 5 things we're going to do for you. Here are the 4 things we'll do for you. And here's some examples of how you get benefits. But
Yeah.
benefit tool, absolutely. You should have something on your website now, and that's a great spot to start adding all of these data points. ROI tool, be cautious about that as a website tool. It can backfire as much as it can help you.
Yeah. So, not necessarily an ROI calculator on your website. It's something that a salesperson uses with, the customer during the sale, not for them to figure out on their own. Absolutely.
Right.
So, what else do CEOs need to know in order to go from whatever they have now that may be customer focused, but not yet value focused, or it's a little bit, let's hope they're a little down the road, right, with value, but not quite there. What else do they need to know to really move their whole team towards being able to sell value?
Yeah, certainly. Understanding how the customer is using your product. So think about the internal messaging to your company. When you talk about a new client, try to weave in a little bit of a value message. So from the top to the bottom, for every single employee should understand how they deliver value to the customers, and that theme will start to permeate because you want marketing to think about. How does this marketing material help underscore the value message? You want support to say how are we providing value. So when you're talking about your wins, talk about how they intend to use it and the benefits they think they're going to get. And again, back to the sales team, one of the biggest hurdles that you don't see is how comfortable the salespeople are with that value discussion. Often they'll nod and say they are, but they're not really. And that's a big hindrance when it gets to the actual deal because they will fall back to features. And that's not going to get you as far as you want to go, at least today when folks are trying to pitch a value message.
So I've seen some really great stories put together from interviewing customers, right? They now purchase your product. They are successfully using what you sold them, which is
Right.
awesome, right? What everybody wants. And now they can really tell you the value in their own words. And
Right.
boy, if you can record that in writing or on video or audio, so valuable.
It is. I mean, a webinar, a reel, a quick audio clip on a quick video clip on your website. That is gold. Like I'm in the research world, so we're an analyst company like every other. But I will tell you the absolute truth. An analyst can tell you 1,000 times the value of a product. The customer only needs to tell you once. It's just no matter what. It's always that customer reference that trumps every single thing that anybody else could say. That is the
Yeah.
gold standard. So the more you get those, the better off you are. I know you spend a lot of money on analysts, and I'm happy to take it, but get those customers to talk about value, and that's going to be so much more valuable to you in the sales process.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Well, we've really covered a lot of ground on value selling, and I know there's so much more in your book. We're going to get to that in a minute. But first, I want to ask you a few questions. I've added this to the show recently, a little bit of rapid fire. I noticed some other podcast hosts were doing it, so I thought I'll get on trend here now. And I'm going to ask you 3 questions that the answers, I believe, will really help all the CEOs out there that are listening. All right, are you ready? Okay. First question. What's a book that you think every CEO should read?
Well, in a self-serving way, I should say the value sale because I hope that gives people a framework for that. But honestly, one of the best books I think every CEO, and they've probably already read it, is Getting to Yes. Remembering that collaborative deal, that collaborative process is what wins long-term customers. So not adversarial, but how do we all get to yes is so important. And sometimes rereading that can be really valuable.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's time for me to reread that as well. That is a really good one. And I think that it just really helps you with your mindset. And of course, when the leader's mindset is right, everybody else can, you know, see the vision and feel it better, and their mindsets can get switched as well. So I really love that. All right, next question. What podcast do you love because it makes you think differently?
So Yeah, it's a good question. I don't listen to a lot of business podcasts. I tend to listen to a lot of others. One that I actually like is 20,000 Hertz, which has to do with audio and audio production, and it's always really great stories. I'm not sure if it gets me to think differently, but gets me to think in a completely different way from what I normally do in my day-to-day job. So I enjoy that and tend to listen to that every episode that comes out.
Yeah, I like that, and I like to listen to things that are completely out of my realm, right? Nothing to do with business because I feel like it makes your brain work in a different way, which then makes you go back to your work fresher. It's sort of an interesting thing. So, um,
Yeah.
very good. And then the last one is, what does every CEO need to know to win in this marketplace?
Yeah, treat your customer as precious. Every customer is important today, and understanding that not just bringing a customer on board, but keeping them means treating them as something special that you brought on, and treat them as precious.
Yeah, I agree. Our customers are very precious. Well, it's just been such a pleasure. I just want to talk a little bit about your book before we hop off, the value sale, and tell us a little bit of what we can expect in the book.
So the goal with the value sale is really to break down value selling around its components. How do I make it consumable? So something simple like breadth and repeatability, which is just a very easy concept. But the more people I talk to, the more people I touch, the more often I touch them, the greater the potential ROI. So how can salespeople use breadth and repeatability, or what are the four kinds of benefits? So each chapter is it's not a very long book. It's very clear and to the point. But the goal was really to give people a framework that they can approach value selling and say, look, it's not a big topic. This is actually really easy if you just go about it in a methodical way. So the whole goal with the book is every chapter, I hope the reader comes out with something they either didn't know or knew but hadn't applied, or has a different way to apply something they already knew. And really there to be a good handbook, I hope, for salespeople when they get stuck. So that was the whole goal of writing and publishing the value sale.
What's one chapter or idea in there that might surprise people?
Well, actually, breadth and repeatability is one that I don't think a lot of people understand. But if you think about it, you probably already know it. The more people you touch. So think about a product that, like a CRM product, where I touch a lot of people. Salespeople use it every day. It's used across a broad part of the company. So a lot of people, a lot of use. Then you think about a product that is onboarding new hires. So a product that helps onboarding new hires is used once by very few people, but a product that, like a CRM system, has a much higher potential ROI. So just understanding that concept can help you as you try to present the value of your product, realizing that one is going to be a tougher sale than the other. And then it can be different based on different companies. So a company that's onboarding a lot of people will get greater ROI than a company that's not onboarding a lot of people. So you may need to look for other value points. So usually that's one concept where people say, I knew it, but I didn't actually know it. And then they start to rethink, well, that's just why some deals go really smoothly and other deals become very difficult, because it's breadth and repeatability that's hanging you up. And if you know that walking into a deal, it can sort of make it a little bit easier if you tweak sort of your message a little bit to sort of address the issues.
Absolutely. All right. So if people want to reach you, Ian, how can they do that?
Well, Ian at Nucleus Research is probably the easiest way. LinkedIn, of course. Please connect with me if you can. And I try to get back to as many emails as I can. If you have a question about value, ROI, tend to be really easy. Please send me an email. I'd be happy to help. And there's a lot of base information, like things like IRR, which is a really complicated concept. But there's great stuff on thevaluesale.com. So you can always go to that website, and there's some good articles up there that go into more detail about some of these other metrics and other concepts that may be useful in difficult situations.
Great. Well, thank you so much for taking time to be on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Else, thank you very much for including me.
If you enjoyed the show, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.